There's never been a better time to have SiriusXM. With even more exclusive content, with over 150 channels in your vehicle, including the widest, deepest variety of music, ad-free. Root for your team. Get news. Listen to whatever makes you laugh. And hear all about your favorite stars. Your Platinum Plan offer includes more than ever before to enjoy online, on your phone, or at home. Create your own ad-free personalized stations powered by Pandora. Hear ad-free extra channels filled with music and enjoy favorite shows with SiriusXM Video. Thousands of hours of shows and performances on demand. What you love is on now.
One of the forefather brands of DSP has done it again. That's right. We're talking about Electromedia's flagship brand, Audison, as they've recently unveiled a brand new line of DSP integrated amplifiers called Forza and a software to boot called BitDrive. We've got Ken Ward in the studio with us today at this workshop, and we're going to learn about it all. This is CMA Workshop presented by SiriusXM. Audison, and it starts now. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning into this ongoing DSP saga. We're calling the DSP sessions here on CMA Networks. And today we've landed on a juggernaut, and that is, of course, Audison. I'm your host, Ben Wu. And for the next while, we're going to be learning all about this brand new product that Audison just dropped not so long ago. It's called Forza. Whole new series of amps that we're going to learn about. And of course, BitDrive, the software that goes along with it. This is, of course, a workshop. But before we get to that, let's go ahead and bring on the Canadian distributor from Automobility, coming in from their studios, both Steve Colombe, who's their product manager, along with Phil Cameron. They're new. Yes, I said it. They're new product specialists. Come on in, guys. Hey, fellas.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. We are here again. DSP is on the menu, and now we're talking about the heavyweight brand, right? We're talking about Audison. Big announcements. That means, which has a lot of meanings. It impacts so many things. It impacts the way dealers are going to deal with DSP. It impacts the type of solutions they have. Steve, let me start with you. Forza, major announcement, obviously, and somewhat of a departure for Audison. How does this new line of amplifiers and software, for that matter, how is that going to impact our dealers?
Well, the name says it all. Forza means force, so power. So power is key with these new products. A lot of power. One of those, the 5-channel, we're going to expand a bit more today on it. Lots of power for us. So.
Not only power, RMS power. Tools, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about built-in integration tools that will make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
So lots of power. This is a product with full-fledged tools built in DSP. So can't wait for Ken to show you guys a little bit more about that.
There's one more person I want to get his opinion on that's part of the Automobility team. We're going to bring him in right now. Well, I guess he also is the new Western Canadian mobile specialist, along with the account manager for both Automob and, of course, the firm. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Mr. Justin, how are you doing, sir?
Hey, guys.
Now, Justin, you were somewhat spoiled because when you kind of took on this new role, it just so happened that you were also present in person at Orlando K-Fest, where Ken and the team actually launched this new product. So I'm going to pick your brain. What was that experience like? What did you notice? And what were your overall impressions of the product?
So, yeah, I mean, the timing was a bit of a whirlwind for me, but it was really cool. Forza itself is the result of calculated engineering. It is a product or a lineup that is built to deliver on all aspects of exactly what you need to do. It was really exciting for me to kind of be involved with a company like Electromedia and Audison and to attend this launch, because it was also new to me. When I started in this industry, you know, the Bit One was a juggernaut. Like it was like one of the first and foremost really multifaceted, crazy DSPs. And now I think the Bit One came out in 2008. So, I mean, it was a very good piece back then. And I think Electromedia and Audison have just had nothing but time and success with their other products. And probably I could say that I view Forza as a culmination of pretty much every advance or step in technology that they've implemented for over the last, you know, almost 20 years, put into one to make sure that we can do what we need to do in the automotive or 12-volt industry. So
Yeah,
it's really exciting for me.
I had a chance to catch up with Ken from that show, and I mean, when the first time, my first impression about it, you know, it looks like the same chassis as the previous generation amplifiers and the Prima, but yet jam-packed, like you said, Steve, more power. Like you said, Phil, new software, new tools, new DSP power. And you're right, Justin, I have to agree with you. These guys have been doing it since the beginning. So refinement, I think, is key, and I think that's what we're going to learn about today. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our product specialist. You guys know him as the International Technical Marketing Manager. Wow, that's a mouthful. For Electromedia, we call him Uncle Ken. Ken Ward, come to the studio and educate us today, please.
Hey, everybody.
Hold
Yeah,
on,
we
Ken.
got a basketball team here today. Look at that.
Well, we're pretty excited. This is like, it's not every day there's a whole new launch of a brand new series of amplifiers and a brand new software to go with. So let me pick your brain on this. You know, since its launch, it's been some time that's passed. I'm sure you've had a lot of sidebar conversation with curious dealers and you know, passionate car audio people that have had the opportunity to share their impressions with you, share some feedback. Can you share some of those comments that you've heard so far since its launch?
Well, when we were in the booth at Knowledge Fest and we were showing the software for the first time and we were demonstrating a car with the 5-channel in it, we got great feedback from all of the attendees. There was a line to listen to the car all 3 days. Even the exhibitors who came to listen to the car gave us great feedback. And it was a very basic system. We've all seen really complex, high-performance demo systems. The demo system in this car was a set of Prima components, 6 and tweeter in the front, Prima coaxial, 6 and tweeter in the back, and 2 10-inch Prima subwoofers, and a 5-channel amp. That was it. And this system, USD, was less than $3,000 retail. And everybody was blown away by the performance and the imaging. And the best part about that is that the vehicle we were in, which is a 2023 Kia Sportage, was one of the best possible demonstrations for phase correction from the factory signal, because there was phase processing built in to the head unit that we reversed. And I'm actually going to be demonstrating that in a few minutes and show you how to do it. I know that I get a lot of questions about that. Right after that, CMA, there was a workshop episode I was on just after that where we talked about this concept and we talked about this software. And between the Knowledge Fest event and the CMA workshop episode, I had a lot of people talk to me about seeing one of those. Then I started to get people who were contacting me who hadn't done either of those things. Who just had looked at the website and said, hey, that's a new product, and looked at the new product and read about it and said, this is really great, and then started pre-selling it and then calling saying, will I be able to get this because I've already sold some? And that's how you know that you've got the product that the market wants, when they don't even know exactly what it's going to cost and they already have it on order. So the feature set is really, I mean, the word compelling gets thrown around, but what the word compelling means is you got to do something once you know it. And apparently what you need to do is order a few.
Oh, we're definitely going to give you every opportunity today, Mr. Ward, to demonstrate why that is true. Now, you mentioned that you're going to show us a demo on a feature set. Can you give us a brief overview of what you're going to be presenting today?
So we're talking about a family of products. It's going to consist of some DSP amplifiers, or as we call them, bit amplifiers, and then it's going to consist of some companion amplifiers that can plug into the bit amplifiers and use the DSP processing in the bit amplifier. The first 3 models that are going to come out are going to be an 8-channel, a 12-channel, and a big 5-channel. And we had a 5-channel in our Prima line. It was not big. It was a small 5-channel. It was elegant, and it allowed you to do some nice low-power things. And the North American market was pretty unanimous in saying, hey, could we have more, please? And so Audison is delivering, and this is going to be, this product was really delivered and developed for the North American market. A 5-channel amp that is 100 watts by 4 at 4 ohms, all channels driven, and 600 watts for a subwoofer at 2 ohms, RMS. So that seems to be the level of power that our dealers tell us will work well in their applications. They're gonna, if they're putting 210s under the seat of a quad cab truck, and then they've got front and rear, they want to be able to put in a 5-channel that'll overcome those big wheels and tires going down the road and rock out. And based on what our dealers told us at Knowledge Fest, this product will do that. Now, our previous family of DSP amplifiers had a single processed pre-out for a sub-amp. All of these bit amplifiers have 6 individual processed pre-outs in addition to the amplified channels, unless we're talking about the 12-channel. The 12-channel didn't have room for that. We only have 2 pre-outs on the 12-channel. But for example, this 5-channel that we're going to be focusing on today, if I want to use this amp in a front-rear sub configuration out of the box, I'm good. If I want to upgrade that customer later and go with a 3-way front stage that's fully active, all I need to do is add a 4-channel amp and connect to the pre-outs coming out of the amplifier, run them over to the 4-channel amp, and now I have a 9-channel amplified DSP system. So there is a system thought behind it. There is a concept behind it. Steve was talking about more power. I think that's really the great way to think about it. More amplifier power, more OEM integration power. One of the things that has thrown a lot of dealers who've talked to me over the last few years, and I'll be really frank, it took me a while to get my arms around it, was the idea of OEMs processing the phase as a cheap way to try to solve some of the problems in a car without solving all the problems in a car. It's a partial solution. But when OEMs implement this partial solution and we don't pick it up, we don't notice it, then when we get to the very last thing we do in our product delivery, which is tune the car, we can't get the results we expect, and it's hard to find out why. And I can't wait to show you how we're solving that.
Awesome. And that's all software driven, right? Just to be clear.
Pardon?
That's all software driven as far as
that is all software driven. Basically, we've got in this product, we have an electrical RTA, and I'm going to skip back a couple of episodes on Workshop. A while back, we came on and showed you how, with our BitTune upgrade, you can take 2 channels from a factory system and you can analyze them, and then you can sum them together and analyze that. That capability is built into Forza with BitDrive software. We also showed you how you could use the BitTune acoustic RTA to tune the vehicle. And that capability is built into the AF amp and the BitDrive software. You can use the BitTune as a microphone. It's a complex microphone, but you can do it if you have one. Or you can do something like, here's an example. This is the Dayton Audio Parts Express USB microphone. It's a pretty popular way to get into tuning a system. And you just, the preamp is built into the barrel, and you just take the USB cable and plug it into your laptop. And this is compatible with the BitDrive software as well as several other microphones. I haven't tested a USB microphone that is not compatible with the BitDrive software. The Mini DSP mic works, the Parts Express mic works, the Audio Frog mic works. Every microphone I've tried out is compatible with the, also if you have a USB sound card, I've tested a couple of different USB sound cards with a XLR microphone plugged into it. and it works great.
Okay.
So as Phil was mentioning, we've taken a number of tools that are required and put them all in one spot.
That's pretty much exactly what dealers have been saying. You know what I mean? Like that pretty much sums it up. So I think we have a lot that we're about to learn. It's a brand new software. Some of you guys might be putting your eyeballs on this for the very first time. Some of us had a preview of it, but I think Ken's about to go full bore on this and show you exactly not only setup, but I think to preface this, what exactly are you going to demonstrate today?
Well, I'm going to open up the software and I'm going to show you three things out of the software. There's really three work areas of focus that you end up using in DSP software. One of them is you set up your system. You define your system. So I'll walk you through the configuration wizard. The second thing is you integrate with the factory signal. And I'm going to show you some expert mode stuff on how to do that. Audison for years has had a basic OEM integration capability called DEQ, which will knock off the rough edges and give you a signal that's basically ready to tune. This software allows you to go into an expert mode that gives you total control over that signal.
Very nice.
And then finally, obviously I'm not in a shop with a car, but I have created an emulation where I'm going to demonstrate for you how we are using our equalizer and our acoustic RTA together. Now, this is not the first Audison product or Electromedia product even that has had an acoustic RTA in it. Our Virtuoso added an acoustic RTA a couple of years ago, and our Marine amplifier in the Hertz line also has an integrated RTA that works very similarly to this one. A lot of what I want to do there is let you see how intuitive parametric equalizers become when the EQ and the RTA are overlaid on top of each other.
Excellent, excellent, all in one place.
And then you want to look at the product? Can we look?
Well, I think we should just take a quick glimpse. I know the guys at Automob. I've been staring at that box on the table since they got on. Why don't we just quickly go look at what that's all about? Let you talk through it, and then from there we'll switch right to your screen so we can talk about BitDrive. How's that sound?
That sounds great.
All right, Justin and I, we're going to take a back seat, take some notes, and away you go.
So the first thing I want to point out on this box, let's see here. Where'd we go? The first thing I want to point out on this box is that we redesigned our packaging. We're in the middle of doing a packaging redesign for a lot of this gear. And one of the reasons there is that it's a proven fact that better packaging and better presentation help customers feel better about buying premium product. Now, if you see in the lower right, it says fully bridgeable. That's because it's fully bridgeable. We have found out that there are some DSP amplifiers out there where either you can't bridge all the channels or you can't bridge any of the channels. And the way dealers seem to find out about that is when they need it for the system design they sold and it doesn't work. So our stuff is all fully bridgeable, which kind of stems from our ability to handle 2 ohm loads. You also see a high-res logo. This is a high-res certified family of products. It is made in Italy. There's a little nice logo there. And when you lift it up, and Phil's going to open it right now, you're going to see how quality the experience is from the very beginning. That there is an insert there with a QR code. The QR code will take you to the product page for the product, or there's a link underneath that you can use. That'll get you the full manual, the download tunes, the download tracks. I should mention that because most cars don't have a CD player anymore, this product doesn't come with a test CD any longer. The expectation is that dealers will download the test tracks and put them on a USB stick. So make sure you do that. Now, you can see the EID insert right here with the serial number. Registering for that will extend your product warranty. So it's something that we really want to let customers know that they want to do. And then we have our quick reference guide, which is required for our international sales. This is the one that has the wiring diagram, and it has a number of different languages. But once you find the one you like, you'll have the basic wiring info. There's the amplifier itself, and you notice it's not a massive amplifier. This amplifier here is, I mentioned it's 100 by 4 ohms, and it's 600 by 1 at 2 ohms. It also has 8 channels of analog input with full correction on each channel, and it has 11 channels of DSP processing. Some of the others have 14. This one has 11. Because it's in our M, look at that. It's the same width as a phone. It also accepts 4 ohm power and ground wire because it's in the max line. We have 2 different form factors for these products. This is in the max line, so you can see it's got 4 ohm. The smaller one is the compact line. It'll take 6 gauge wire, and I don't really know anywhere you get 6 gauge wire, so you just put 8 gauge wire in it. But this one takes 4 gauge wire. And you can also see that all the connectors are on the same side with one exception. If you could rotate it to one end, Phil, and we're going to show you the card slot. Most of the time, you're not going to need to put anything there. But if you need more than 8 analog inputs, there's an input card you can put in there and go up to 12 analog inputs. If you need a coaxial digital input or a second Toslink, that is available to go in there. You can also see the fuses are on the other end. They're pretty accessible. One thing that you'll notice about the design language here is that it's the edgeless design that we first introduced with our SR series of amplifiers a couple of years ago, which were very well received. So it's not a physically large package. It's about the same size as our current APF family of amplifiers. And it has a couple of hardware ports that I want to point out before we get into the software. One of them is a dedicated Maestro high-speed serial data port. Our DSP amps have supported Maestro for years, but our initial implementation was sort of a workaround because the product design was almost complete when we started talking with iDataLink about the Maestro interface. So we used a low-speed serial data port because that's all our product had. And so sometimes we've had a little bit of laggy operation when you change the volume control in certain vehicles. And that's something that we've eliminated with the high-speed port that's native to Maestro only. It's dedicated to Maestro, and it was designed in from the ground up. And so we'll let all the dealers know when that function is fully validated, but it's already supported in hardware. And we think it's going to give you a totally different user experience when you use it to interface with a Volkswagen, Hyundai, Kia, Ford, Toyota, or Chrysler, Fiat Chrysler vehicle. There's also a port on there that says ADC, I believe. And ADC is the serial port that connects, in this case, to our Beacon high-res Bluetooth receiver. So why do we need a connector if it uses Toslink to bring digital in from the Beacon? I'm glad you asked me that. That actually carries serial commands back and forth. And if you use the absolute volume mode, it's an optional mode. You don't have to use it. But if you decide to use the absolute volume mode, it fixes all the bits at full bit depth coming out of the Toslink from your phone going into the amplifier. And when you change the volume control on your phone, it doesn't affect the bit stream at all. It actually just executes the volume on the output of the amplifier like a DRC would. And that allows us to retain full bit depth from any digital source. Speaking of the DRC, there is a port on there that is labeled DRC, and it's not the port, that's not the connector that we've used in the past for the DRC. That's important to note because the classic DRCs that have been in our lineup for years are not compatible with our new Forza. We have a new DRC AC, which will be coming out later this year, which will connect directly to this and give you the controls that we're used to with an external DRC. There's also a connector on there that says, I believe it says control next to the power connector. That has the remote in and remote out, and it has 2 activation wires. And we've had activation inputs on a number of our DSPs. These are configurable in the BitDrive software. Would you like this wire to change the memory preset? Would you like it to change the input? Would you like it to do both at the same time? Would you like it to change the volume level and lock the volume? Would you like it to change the EQ setting? We can actually take one of those wires and connect it to a convertible top position switch and have it change the tune of the vehicle automatically for the customer when the top is up versus when the top is down. So the hardware package is really well laid out. I'm a big fan of it. And you can see right there, we've got the high-res logo just to remind people that this is a certified product that for high-resolution audio. So I think that's a pretty compelling package, and I'm excited to be able to get into how to set it up. So thanks, Phil. Thanks for taking care of that. So Ben, you think we should jump into software now? Hey, look at that, software. So what I've done here, this center screen is the opening screen for the BitDrive software, and you can see underneath it, it says 0.9.7.3. That tells you that this is a pre-release version of the software. When we drop the 1.0 version, which is scheduled for later this month, then we should see that number increment to 1.0. And you can see here that I can select connecting through a USB port, a serial port, Wi-Fi, or offline if I'm doing a demo. I'm going to actually connect with the USB port. Wi-Fi is not enabled right now. So it's going to go ahead and do the handshake with the amplifier, ask it what it is and what it can do, and configure itself to support what that can do. So there we go. So what I'm going to do here, let me show you a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to walk you through a bit of the wizard. I'm not going to do the whole thing with the wizard because I'm not really set up to do that today. But actually, first let me give you a guided tour of the software. So it looks a bit like the legacy Audison software. There's a picture of the car on the left. And the bottom is where our equalizer is. In the middle is our graph. Above the graph is where our level controls are. All that is pretty straightforward. That said, it's definitely a different look than some of our older software. I really like it. There's a couple of features that I think will really be helpful for a dealer who's learning their way around. The first one is this. We are an international company. We operate in a number of different languages. So this is a very, very icon-driven UI. There are some new icons here you might not know about. So take your cursor and hover over the icon, and you will get an info tip. I didn't know that term. I had to look it up in Wikipedia. But an info tip will come up and tell you what that icon does. And that's a great way for you to learn what the icons are without reading the manual, because we know you're probably not going to do that. Also, every single functional area, whether it's the output channels map or the output levels or the equalizer, you can see that there are these little question mark icons that are in each functional area. And if I click on that, it brings up the online help to define that functional area and give me any tips or guidance. And that is a manual that can be updated during the life of the product. We can make sure that new things that we want to cover or features that we change get revised. You're not going to be reading an out-of-date manual because this can be updated in a very straightforward way. So if I look at these icons across the top, that opens a saved configuration file. That allows you to go to pre-existing templates for configuration files. That's going to be really useful with our sound pack program later on. This, and kids, that's a picture of a floppy disk. This allows you to save the configuration file that you've been working on with a title that you choose. And this one is the most important icon on the whole list. It's the finalize icon. You click on this to write the configuration settings to non-volatile memory. And that's what keeps the settings from disappearing when you turn off the key. Now, speaking of turning off the key, this product also has PC Power On, which is a feature that's really dear to my heart that we added to Virtuoso not too long ago. And what that means is when you're in a modern car, there isn't a physical key that you insert into an ignition lock most of the time. Most of the time, there's a push button. You push it once without your foot on the brake to turn on accessory. And that usually starts a timer. And when the timer is up, it turns accessory back off. And classically, that always happens to me when I'm halfway through tuning the car. So if that should happen, the head unit will still turn off, but the amplifier will remain on because the USB is connected to the PC. As long as your PC is on, the amplifier will remain on. All you have to do at worst is go back and hit the button on the dash and make sure the volume level is where you were before the car shut off. Now, this little icon here is for the input triggers that I talked about. That's how you click on that. You can go in and enable a control wire and then decide, do you want it to change the sources, change the memory, change the volume level, or change the final tuning EQ. And that's a positive input. It's not a pulse, it's a latch. So you just hook it up to a switch or to some device that creates a latching output. This is for future features. Doesn't really get into a lot of technical information right now. This one here is an icon I really need to explain. That's a magic wand, in case you were wondering, and that's how you get into the configuration wizard. Now, this one here is for the microphone icon, is for the real-time analyzer that's built in. And in case it's not obvious from the fact that it's a picture of a microphone, that is an acoustic RTA. The one next to it is what we're calling audio monitor, and that is for an electrical RTA that appears on the same graph. That's not the only place you can see an electrical RTA. I'm going to show that to you in a moment. Now, over here, you see this musical note icon. That allows you to go in and set up some audio settings for the analyzer. So, for instance, you can go in here and select which device you're going to get audio from. I'm going to go ahead and select the one I'm using now. You can select 1/3 octave, 1/6 octave, or 1/24 octave modes. I'm going to use 1/24 octave. And you can select short, very short, normal, or long refresh rates. And I'm going to go to long because I want it to be calming and not too jittery. Now that I've done that, I can select the acoustic RTA. If you don't select the microphone, the acoustic RTA isn't available for you as a function. Then I've got settings. And if I go into my settings, I can make a number of changes in here. One of them is you can change centimeters to inches, but you can also do that in the distance window. And there's the help icon and the about button. Now, if I come down to the zones, that's really something that's set up primarily for marine applications because this software will be used to control some marine products in the future. And there are also 6 different memory presets, which is many more than we have offered at this price point in the past. Now, if you look at the output channels map, this is the map mode. You can see that there is a link button, and that link button allows you to connect left and right together. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on for right now, but when you get to a certain point in the tuning process, you're going to want to turn it off so that you can EQ left and right separately. But for right now, I'm going to leave that on. Next to it is a list icon. That list icon changes this to tell you what each individual channel is assigned to do. It doesn't really give you a lot of info right now, but I'll show you that in a moment after we go through the setup process, and it'll be a lot more useful. Now, over here, we have an input and an output button. And if I go to inputs right now, can you see how we have 4 inputs that have virtual LEDs? That's because I have 4 channels coming out of a Toyota factory radio connected to these 4 inputs. So what I've been teaching people for years is make sure to test the electrical signal to know what you have. So we're going to do that in a minute. But first of all, I'm just going to make sure I got front, rear, left, and right correct. So I'm going to go into my my tone control of my Toyota head unit here, and I'm going to go all the way to the left. And when I do that, you can see that the right channel went out, and the left channel, 1 and 3, stayed lit. So it looks like I got left and right correct. Now I'm going to fade all the way to the front. And when I fade all the way to the front, 1 and 2 stayed on, 3 and 4 went out. So in 30 seconds, I just QC'd my channel assignment on the inputs for left and right, front and rear. So that didn't take very long. By the way, you can see what happens with these virtual LEDs if I overdrive the input. Now, it's set to a pretty low setting, but I wanted to be able to show you that we've got a clipping light for each individual channel, and we have a clipping light for the inputs as a whole. So I'll turn that back down to a level that isn't clipping the system, and then we're ready to move forward. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the wizard here, because this is how most of our dealers configure the system. Some of our products have required you to use the wizard to configure the system. And if you want to do it manually, that is possible. Let me show you how we're going to do this. So configuration wizard. I don't need to finalize it because those were just demonstrations we were doing. All right, so here's the list of what we can do if you fire the software up offline without an amplifier connected. This list is shorter because there's some things the software doesn't try to emulate if there's no hardware connected. So I'm going to click start, and the first thing it's going to ask me is, do you want the optical input enabled? The reason for that is if there's a DRC in the vehicle and we're not using the optical input, but it is made available as a source and the consumer accidentally selects it, suddenly they have no audio. And it seems as if the system is broken. So if you're not using the optical input, you can go in here and defeat it, and it's not available for the rest of the process, and it's not available to be selected by the software. Now we're at setting up the inputs, and I can select if I'm using high level or low level. And when I say high level, this device can take up to 22 volts. If you have one of the rare European cars that has woofer channels that are higher than 22 volts, you can take those through our connection, SLI 2.2, which can handle 35 volt signals and knock them down to a preamp level, and then you can connect them to a low level input. And I'll show you how you would set that up. But in this case, I have a very simple front rear configuration, and you can see that it is automatically configured it. Input 1 is front left. Input 2 is front right. Input 3 is rear left. Input 4 is rear right. If you hook those up differently, you can change that later manually, but that's the automatic way to set it up. Now we would go through and do our automatic level setting process. You can see that there's some virtual LEDs right here. And the way that process works is it plays our sine sweep track and looks for clipping at any frequency. Now, I'm not going to run that here. That's a pretty well-known process that we've done quite a few times. I'm just going to skip over it. And it will also check polarity. I'm going to also show you how to check phase and polarity manually. And then we can do DEQ. And I'm going to show you how to do that manually. So now we've been asked to select the output setup. Now, the output setup is basically how many channels do you have and what are they doing? And if you, this is a 5-channel amp. If you select more than 5 channels, additional channels will be routed out the preamp connector. So I'm just going to go ahead and select a 5-channel system, and I'm going to make a change to that later on. Once I've selected it, you can see that each of the outputs has been assigned. Front left wide range is output 1, front right wide range is output 2, left rear wide range is output 3, and right rear is output 4, subwoofer is 5. Next to that, you see a bunch of drop downs that have defaulted to unknown. And I think that's a translation thing. I'd like to change unknown to something else down the road, because you know what speakers you installed in the car. But what this means is it really should, in my opinion, say other. Because what this lets you do is go in and select which Audison speakers you installed in the car, and the crossover points for those speakers will automatically be populated into the system. So if we've had some requests to put speakers other than Audison speakers in there, and we've been listening to those requests, so we're also going to add Hertz speakers too. Now here we have the delays. If you have measured your delays, you can add them at this point. If you haven't measured the delays, you can skip over them. You can change from centimeters to inches in the screen. So that's pretty straightforward. And that set up that finished the setup. So when it goes light gray like this, and you see the little spinning blue wheel, All the ones and zeros are being put into place. And in a moment, the software is going to come back online. You will see it change its color. Now, you can see that we are on selected to inputs here, and we have 4 inputs. If I select outputs here, you can see that we have 5 outputs. And I'm going to go ahead and turn that down a little bit. And I'm also going to go in and activate output 6. And the reason I'm going to do that is because in a little bit, I'm going to demonstrate for you equalization. And when I demonstrate the equalization, I'm going to need to have output 6 active for me. It's a preamp output on this amplifier. So if I go back over here to inputs, you can see there's an icon here that looks like a line that is being flattened by arrows on the top and the bottom. And that is the input equalizer icon. And that is something that only has existed in our flagship Virtuoso in the past. And I'm going to show you that right now. So here is our input equalizer. And you can see down here, we have filtering and delays. I'm going to be in the filtering tab for right now. And you can see that we have the front left input channel selected. Every input has its own 12-band parametric EQ. So we're looking at input 1 EQ. Now up here, we have 4 input channels and we have 5 output channels. So I'm going to select input number 1. And let's make sure that I have signal. And let me go ahead and calibrate my, I'm going to look at that in 1/12 octave, and I'm going to look at that in normal mode. So right there, you can see a frequency response. And that frequency response is the signal coming in channel 1. And in this case, it's the left channel of a Toyota 3rd generation Tacoma head unit. And it looks like a roller coaster, doesn't it? I haven't done any correction to it at all. I just wanted you to see what it looks like. Now, I'm going to turn off channel 1, and I'm going to turn on channel 2. And if you look closely, you can see that channel 1 and channel 2 are very, very similar, but not identical. And if you watched the previous episode of Workshop where we went through the bit tune, we used the same radio. We showed you the same thing. But you can see there are some small differences, but by and large, these are very close. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to channel 1, and I'm going to manually do this. I'm not even going to use DEQ. I'm going to go in and manually correct this signal using the input equalizer for channel 1. And the first thing I'm going to notice is that I've got a big, big dip right here. Here's 100 hertz, that's 200 hertz, that's 300 hertz. So I'm going to just sort of pick one of these, and hey, that one was at 250. I'm going to say, let's put the center frequency at 300. And let's put this at about 3. And let's add some gain. And let's see what happens. Wow, that made a big difference right off the bat, didn't it? Let me bring that in a little bit. Let's put it right about there. Now, this is 100. This is 200. So this peak right here is centered at about 180. And it's fairly broad. I'm not sure if you can see this on the screen, so let me narrate a little better. The first thing I do is I want the center frequency to be in the correct spot. So I'm going to put this at about 180. And I can move this dial, or I can type in the number, whichever I prefer. Then I'm going to roughly set the bandwidth. This is going to be at about 3. Let's see if that does it. And then I'm going to bring down the level. You know what? I'm going to widen that out a little. The actual numbers are not that critical. What we're looking for is to end up with a pretty smooth curve. If we end up with a pretty smooth curve, we've done our job here. So you can see there's some bass roll off in the very low bass. I'm going to use our low shelf filter, and I'm going to bring up that bass, and I'm going to see if that, hey, that looks a lot nicer. I'm going to back that off a little bit. Since we're not boosting in the acoustic domain, you don't really have to worry about how many dB you add in the electrical domain. So 20, 30, 40, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to say that this one should be at about 40. And whoops, let's just do it this way. 40 and 5. And let's see what this does. Yeah, I brought that down a little bit. Now you can see there is a peak right here at 200, 300, 400, 500. It's about 550. So let's go in and say 550. Let's see how that does. And let's put this at about 5. And let's bring that down. And that might have missed just a little bit. Let's try 565. That's not too bad. Let me put some of that energy back in there. Hey, that looks nice. So we have one more dip right here, 10K. I'm going to say that's probably about 12K. Let me try 12K and see what happens. Q of 5. Hey, that helped quite a bit, didn't it? So this isn't perfect yet. I don't think that we need to get it perfect, but we need to get it linear. So there is one more thing, 2, 3, let's see, 200, 300, 400. I think that I need to put a little bit more energy in at about 350. That was the CD going back to the beginning. I've got a CD in here that's just got 10 minutes of pink noise on it. I appreciate you sticking with me during this. So you can see here, I'm going to bring that down a little. That's a pretty linear response, especially if you looked at it in the default resolution instead of the zoomed in stretch vertically resolution that I'm using. That's a pretty smooth response. I've still got a peak at 20, 30, 40, maybe 50. Let me try going in here. I'm going to go to 50. I'm going to go to 6. I'm going to bring that down just a little. There we go. That looks fairly good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare that to channel 2. Channel 2 is pretty nonlinear still. That's channel 1. This button here will temporarily bypass my equalizer. So that's where I started. And that's where I am now. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this set of equalization settings and I'm going to copy it over to the front right channel. Now let's see how that did. It's better, but it's not correct yet. We need to make a couple of different edits for that. Now let's just see here. All right. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm not sure that even copied. Let me just take a look here. Copy from, oh, okay. I actually probably erased what I had in there. Haha. So let's do it this way. Copy from front left full. So if I go back to front left full, we're still there. So that's good. All right. So I'm going to go to front right full right here. And then I'm going to go to copy. And I'm going to say copy from front. Oh, that's backwards. Back to front left full. And say copy to front right full. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and make some changes here. And the first one I'm going to do is 200, 300, 350. I'm going to go to 350. And I know this might not be the most exciting thing we've ever done, but I think you're going to really like where we get on this. So I'm going to ask your patience, and I appreciate that. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add some at 80. And now one thing that I've heard from a few people when I go ahead and I do equalization is they expect that I will do equalization in a very dainty and delicate way so that They're worried they're going to do something wrong. And they notice I don't really worry about doing anything wrong. I'm not that stressed out about it. That's a fair assessment. That's pretty much how I feel. I'm going to go ahead and put this one back. And I'm going to take 300, lower that down a little. So you can see this is a pretty good example because the left and the right don't match perfectly. That's just how it is. 2500. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go to 50. I'm going to change that one to 2500. And I'm going to add some energy. And look at that. So where is my 1500? There we are at 1500. Let's add a little more energy there. There we go. So that is not a perfect match to the left, but it's pretty darn close, and it's linear enough to where we are ready to go in and tune. The last thing that we want to do is we want to use the ability on this software to add left and right together. And the reason that we want to sum those together, and I've used this explanation before, if you've been doing car audio for very long, you've undoubtedly hooked up two subwoofers in a box and accidentally hooked one up backwards. And the result was you canceled out all the bass. One subwoofer was able to cancel out the other subwoofer because they were now moving in opposite directions. Now, when you are using electrical signals from the factory, if they've done any sort of phase processing, you can easily detect it by safely adding those signals together. And we do that with our bit tune, and we do that now with AF Forza and BitDrive software. So if I go up here and I select number 1 and number 2, you can see that at almost every frequency, the signal just got a lot louder. And that's theoretically how it ought to work. If you add two signals together that are the same amplitude and they're in phase with each other, they ought to get 6 dB louder. And if you didn't see that, let me show it to you again. Here is channel 1. Here is channel 2. And here is 1 and 2 added together. And you can see that we have a phase problem. It's pretty apparent, isn't it? You've got a big hole. And if you left that there and you went and tried to tune the system, you would have a terrible, terrible frequency response problem around that frequency, and all the equalization you could add would not solve the problem. So what do? This is where phase inverting all-pass filters come into play. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this hole right here, and I'm going to say that looks like it's at about 250 hertz, right about. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to turn on an all-pass filter here, and I'm going to do it at 250 hertz. I'm going to use a bandwidth of 5 because that's usually what works. And you can see that I just solved most of the problem. Now, how did I know to do that to channel 2? I didn't. That was dumb luck. So I'm going to turn this off for a minute. And I'm going to go to channel 1. And I'm going to try it on channel 1 at 250 hertz with a Q of 5. You can see that I just changed a deep V into a deep W. If you add an all-pass filter and the result that you get is a big W, you got the wrong side. So turn that back off, go to the other channel. So I'll just go back in and enable that second order all-pass filter, and I took care of most of the problem. You can see there's a little bit of problem left. Well, I'm going to address that one on the other channel, and I'm going to put that at about 300. Let's see. Actually, let me turn that off for a sec. All right. I'm going to put that at 320. And I'm going to put a Q of 6. And that isn't doing it. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn that one off. And let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go back in there and let's try 400. Wow, look at that. Now you can see that we have a linear response all the way across when we add these two together. And that means that they may not be perfectly matching in phase at every frequency, but they're awfully, awfully close. And that's good enough to tune. We don't care what the value of the frequency is. We don't care if it's 0 or 1 or 2 or 3. We know that left and right are matching in phase, and that's what stereo requires. Stereo requires you to be matching in phase. So at this point right here, I've set up my front left and my front right equalization to have a linear response from the left and the right, and they're also linear if I sum them together. So I am ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And that's my explanation for the expert use of our new input EQ. Now I'm changing my test tracks now, because now I'm going to demonstrate something else after I show you. First, I'm going to show you the setup for the software in a little bit more detail. You can see here that I've got a picture of the car. Now, if I select this speaker, the theme color for input number 1 or output number 1 is red. You can see here on the output side, that red is highlighted. You can see that the chart has a red trace on it. You can see that all of the accent colors for delay and crossover and equalization all changed to red. And that is to remind us that we're on channel 1. Anybody who spent any time tuning DSPs has accidentally wasted some time trying to EQ channel 1 while accidentally selecting some other channel. So the idea here is when we switch from channel 1 to channel 2, the accent color changes from red to green to blue to yellow to violet. And that way it's just one more reminder of what channel we have selected. Now, if I go here to the list mode that I showed you earlier, suddenly it's a lot more valuable because it has a visual representation of whether you have a high pass or a low pass crossover enabled, what frequency is enabled, and it also will show you if you have inverted the polarity of the output. So if I have the subwoofer selected and I come down here and I click to 180 degrees, I just changed the icon right there to show I've inverted the polarity. And that's a really important thing to be able to see without looking at each individual channel. So that said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the mixer. And the mixer is this icon here. Actually, I think I'm going to go here and show you the mixer. And that is something you won't have to access very often. It is set up automatically by the wizard. And you may have to make some changes to it, but it's set up automatically by the wizard. So you can see here for input front left, that's going out our front left channel. Input for front right is going out the front right channel. And rear left and rear right accordingly. When we get to the subwoofer, it arbitrarily decided to use 50% from the front left and 50% from the front right to add up to 100. If you want to have non-fading bass, then what you want to do is you want to draw 25% from the rear left, 25% from the rear right, 25% from the front left, and 25% from the rear right. Can you go above 100% total? Sure you can. It's not the best idea, but you can. So Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw I'm going to define something for output 6. So now you can see the subwoofer here, front left here, front right here, rear left here, rear right here. And if I want to see those here, I can. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the equalization function so that you can see how this works. So what I'm going to do in order to do that, I'm going to make sure that I have that microphone preamp selected. Then I'm going to come up here and click on the RTA. I'm going to go into the adjustments for the RTA, and I'm going to bring up, let's see, do I want to show 6? There we go. Let's take that down. And let's bring that up. All right. So there we can see. And let's go ahead and go to our outputs. And let's go to output 6 right there. And let's just only show output 6 and none of the others. So let's see here. There we go. Output 6, and you can see that we have a frequency response that is below the line in some areas and above the line in other areas. Now, this is not how we would normally EQ a car. This is one channel, and it's playing full range. And normally, this is not how we would EQ a car. But I set this up as an emulation so that I can show you how the RTA and the EQ work together to save you time. So if I'm trying to get this channel to EQ to relatively flat, the first problem that I see is going to be right here around 250 hertz. So I'm going to select a band. I'm going to make it an EQ band. Oh, I'm going to select this one because I bet it is predefined at 250 hertz. The bandwidth isn't right, but I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to go ahead and move this dot until it's right where I want it. Can you see that dot? I'm going to put it right in the middle of that dip, and I'm going to boost a little. Hey, look at that. But you see how it also affected the peak on the side? So let's try to narrow up that bandwidth a little bit. You can see how the bump narrows when I control the bandwidth. That narrows the number of adjacent frequencies that get affected. That's a lot closer to linear, isn't it? Whoops. Let me go ahead and put that back where I wanted it. There we go. So now what I want to do is I want to come over here, 200, 300, 400. That's about 400. So I'm going to open up this one next to it, and I'm going to leave it at 400. I'm going to bring that down. Oh, looks like they're too close together. Let me go over here and bring that down. Can you see that? Okay, so now we're smoothing that out a little bit. Now I'm going to come over to this end. You can see that we're loud on the treble. I'm going to go ahead and select a shelf filter for the highs. Did I select the right one? I did not. Let's select a high shelf. There we go. And now I can bring that down and bring down the highs overall. Then I'm going to go ahead and select another one, but it's not going to be a shelf filter. And I'm going to put this right in the middle of that bump. You see how that dot is now centered in the bump? I'm going to bring that one down too. So the idea here is that if you're not that familiar with parametric equalization, you're getting more comfortable with what the controls actually do. And you're also seeing how our RTA and our equalizer graphs are sitting on top of each other. I forgot to make this a little larger, so I'm going to blow that up a little bit. Now, my target, I usually have more bass than everything else, but I'm going to go ahead in this instance, and I'm going to go after this peak right here, and I'm going to see if I can go after this peak right here. And that's going to be at about 30, 40, 50. I'm going to put it about there. Let's see where that is. Okay, that's perfectly positioned, but probably, let's call it right there. You can see how you can do an awful lot with one equalizer band if you put it in the right place and you set up the width to be appropriate. So I don't think I've really addressed this problem here very completely. I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, what if I do this one at 200, maybe 250. That's a lot better. If you ever add equalization and it doesn't help, take it back out. That means you have a phase problem, and your phase problem is being the cancellation that you're trying to fix doesn't go away. Now watch this. Look at that. I can put that dot right where I want it and address that little peak. There we go. So the idea there is that I'm showing you how to get your channel to be linear. Now, I'm at a fairly high resolution. That doesn't really help on the right half of the chart because it's pretty easy on the right half of the chart for you to go chasing after problems that are inaudible. The farther you go to the right, the less you're going to hear narrow dips in the chart. But the idea here is simply not to do a tuning class, but to show you how this tool works. And I think you'll agree that the combination of the dots on the line and the RTA laid over it really makes it obvious where your equalization needs to happen. So let's assume for a moment that I have my left and my right channels matching exactly right, which is how I tune. I tune the right channel to hit my target curve, and then I mute it, and I play the left channel, and I EQ that to hit my target curve, and then I play both of them together. And when I play both of them together, I might have some other problems that appear from interaction between the two channels. And I might have some phase cancellations, which is something that my emulation really doesn't demonstrate. Or I might just have to equalize some things a little differently. So you see this thing up here that says final tuning? I'm going to click on it, and I have a 5-band parametric equalizer now that I can set as I need. And I'm going to go ahead, and it affects all the channels. It's a global equalizer. So once I have left and right matching, if I want to make any small tonal adjustments with some products, including some of our old products, you would have to go in and make an adjustment on each individual channel to maintain your left-right match. Don't have to do that anymore. You can come over to this EQ, which, by the way, has a selection of all the wine tasting words across the top. If your customer says, well, it really sounds kind of tinny, well, here you go. That's where tinny is in the frequency range. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just go ahead and make a change to the EQ and then close it. And you can see I just made a change to the overall response of the system. So our process involves 3 different parts of equalization. Make sure the factory signal is linear is step 1. Then when you tune the response, hit your target curve for left and right and make them match. Once you've done that, measure the system and listen to the system and make your final adjustments up here using the final tuning EQ. And because you can, many people make these adjustments by ear in the listening process, then we don't have the RTA at this point. Once you're done, once you have all of your system tuned and everything's where you want it and you're ready, then you can come up here and click on save, and you can type in what the name of the file is, and then you can come up here and finalize the device and save everything to non-volatile memory. And you can see it took 1 second to do that. So to recap, I've shown you how to take one of the most complex signals that you'll run into today, a phase equalized signal, and I've shown you how to equalize it back to flat on left and right, sum them together, and then correct the phase conflicts, the phase cancellations that we found. I've shown you how to set up a system for Forza using the BitDrive software. And I've shown you how to equalize the system using our 15-band parametric channel EQ and our 5-band final EQ, which are in addition to our 12-band per channel input EQ. I should mention, by the way, that if you are not a parametric user and you just want to have a graphic EQ, you can go over here and change this to a graphic EQ, but you lose your phase adjustments. You can also go into final tuning and do the same thing. You can make that a graphic EQ as well. I think you give away a lot of the power of Forza when you do that, but we understand that there are some technicians who really prefer to have a graphic setup, and we have built that in. So other than that, as I always like to say, Ben, I've got nothing.
Two things, and I swear that's it. I mean, I could go on for long, but I have two things I want to bring up. Number one,
happy to help.
My nugget for today's training session is if you're trying to correct a phase problem using a second order all pass filter, and you're getting a W, W stands for wrong channel.
That's correct.
Did I get that right?
That's right.
Number two, any chance I get to use the word sibilance, I will take it.
I absolutely like that, and my reference track for sibilance is I think Sweet Jane by Cowboy Junkies off the Trinity Sessions album.
Yeah,
if Margot's starting to hiss at you, you got something out of whack.
There you go. Let's go ahead and bring our other guests on. We have a little bit of a discussion we want to have, some important questions that we want to ask. Ken took the time to go a little bit deeper, as he always says he's going to do one thing, but he always adds a couple layers to give you little extra experience in there. So showing us the process for sure. Ken, this software platform, it seems like it's going to be something here to stay. You made mention to that. I kind of felt it in the way they've rearranged some of the menus, how you can overlay the graphic equalizer and the parametric. Like, it's all meant to be easy to use, accessible. What does this mean for the future of all the other, because how many are there right now in existence as far as softwares for DSP control?
Well, we have had a software app for our each individual product at the beginning, and then when we came out with Prima, we had a software app for all the Prima amplifiers, which was a step in the right direction. Then we had to come out with a different software app for our APF amplifier because it had a more powerful DSP chipset. So we really designed the underpinnings, the structure of this app to be flexible. This app is one of the products that is of our internal in-house software development team. And so that tells you how much Electromedia valued this sort of area as a product that we brought in. We're a hardware company, but we decided that we needed to be a software company to get what we needed here. And so these guys have developed a number of different products internally, and we're really proud of what they've delivered.
All right. Justin, I hope you're paying attention because I'm coming to you, buddy. Out of all the features that Ken covered today, and you can't steal my thunder on that second order all pass filter, what was a key feature or a key takeaway from today's presentation that you think will have, an impact on dealers?
So when I was in Orlando with these guys, was probably the first time in the last 5 or 6 years in car audio that I wanted to scream in a class and say, like, finally, because like I said, I've been spoiled in this industry, especially in Canada. I had the ability to spend 4 days close quarters with Andy Waymeyer, talking about phase EQ and all pass filters, and Andy taught me at that point how to identify all pass filters, right? But it wasn't an intuitive or an easy process. It was a laptop, external sound card, and proprietary cables that Andy made me. But that allowed me to measure this. I think we were using a Fiat amplifier at the time, right? To gain the signals and to sum them back together, right? When you look back at Toyota Tacomas, using all pass filter in 2017 at 250 hertz, the equivalent of 27 inches of delay. Learn that from Ken.
That's a Ken Ward statement right there. I know it.
But if I haven't had a finally moment for the last 5 years, right, sitting in this, where you have an actual tool that can show you exactly what is going on before you start, right? How many 2017 and up Tacomas have we put awesome audio systems in that weren't really awesome, right? Because we didn't know that it existed. Like I say it all the time, everybody wants to do the DSP. Everyone wants to tune the DSP, but everyone forgets the ABC to DSPs, right? And it's like with Forza, it's they've implemented into a process where you have to do this first, but if it seems painstaking at the beginning or a little bit scary if you're new to it, by the time that you've made it through to the end, you're comfortable, you feel comfortable, and that's going to convey on the sales floor, that's going to convey in the bay with the guys, that's going to convey in the excitement talking about the product. So like I said, this is a calculated, engineered product for exactly what it's supposed to do, and it's really exciting for me. So my favorite thing is the fact that you can get a visual representation of summing two signals together, whether it's left and right or left mid and left tweet, and you can identify gaps and phase shifts at crossover points. And yeah, that's for me, that's the missing link to car audio right now, because everyone throws around all pass or phase EQ, but not a lot of people understand what it means, and almost no one knows how to fix it.
Fair enough. Very well said. Phil, going to you. How about your interpretation of it? Maybe more from a software perspective or an applications perspective. I'd like to hear what are some of the key features that really stood out for you.
There's so many to choose from, but for me, is everything that's built in electrical RTA and the acoustical RTA. So which means I can only use one laptop to do everything I need. In the past, I had one laptop to do my RTA, one laptop to tune my system. Now everything is summed into one device, one tool. It's a lot easier and it's a lot less scary to get into because it's simple.
No doubt, if you're going to train a new customer on it, you're showing up with like a suitcase full of gear and you're pulling out, I think you've already lost them. But you show up with the same laptop that you're checking your emails on, you know what I'm saying? And then say, oh, let's plug in and let me show you how to do this. It's less intimidating out of the gate. It's just a perception thing, right? That's what it is. Ken, of course, you are the senior here. I'm going to leave you the final word. We've done the rounds. You've heard some feedback. Forza, BitDrive, the direction that Audison is going, is this, what can we expect? More of this in the DSP category?
Well, hey, it's been a big lift to get here. This product development was started pre-COVID, and without the headwinds that have been around for delivering product the last couple of years, this product would have already been on the market. I think you and I talked previously about how we haven't seen a lot of big product initiatives lately because of those headwinds. So I know that we're going to take this technology and we're going to continue to hone it. The president of the company has directed that we have a software update calendar for things that we're going to be adding to the software over time. I'm really looking forward to some of those things that are my pet functions that are on that calendar that will be continuous improvement. And, I think that the one thing I'll leave you with here is that with a lot of DSPs, if they're not a flagship DSP, when I'm tuning a DSP, there's some judgment involved. Which problems am I going to go after, and which problems am I going to decide to live with? Because every audio system has some degree of compromise. There's no perfect world. A lot of what experience in tuning a system is deciding what to leave alone and what you have to address. But sometimes that decision is made for us when we're using a particular product and we've run out of tools. If we don't have an all-pass filter and we have a phase cancellation and we try flipping the polarity and that doesn't do it for us, we may have to live with it. And I think Justin and Phil and Steve have seen instances where I've tuned a car and I run into something, I'm like, well, we're not doing anything about that. But there are so many bands on so many channels on input and output, and there's all pass filters on input and output that I have yet to tune a car with an AF amplifier in it and feel like I'm out of bullets. I haven't had it happen yet. So that's the highest, from a tool set perspective, that's the highest praise I can make.
Well, you can count on me to follow up with you on that statement, Mr. Ward, in the near future. On that note, Ken, thank you so much again for your professionalism and your delivery of said education. And we look forward to more experience as some of these new products start hitting the shelves and into the shops so guys can actually play with them. And we're going to get some more news from that from Steve in a second. But on that note, Ken, thank you so much. Justin, appreciate you joining us today and sharing your insight. And we look forward to having you back sooner rather than later. Take care, guys. All right, so let's just circle back one last time with the headquarters over there at AutoMob. Let's get some information that dealers need to know about when it comes to this new line of Forza amplifiers. Steve, I'm going to ask you again. I know what the answer may be, but who knows? You might surprise me. This is a brand new platform. Yes, dealers are going to have to learn this interface. Ken did a great job showing some of those tools today. What is the plan moving ahead for Automobility supporting dealers with this new DSP software?
Well, as you saw, we have 2 and 3. I'd say 3 very competent trainers right now working for Eastern and Western Canada with the support of with Ken Ward. Plan is to move forward with more in-person training, present the new product, move on with the new software versions as well, to show in person how easy they are to use. And you hear the difference, This is the main key.
Is it me, Steve, or did timing just kind of work out that here Audison comes with this brand new software and bam, you got 2 new teammates that could help with that cause?
Well, actually, a week before the launch, Phil, started, and then you said it, the day of the launch or the day prior to the launch, got a phone call. Justin's hired by the firm out west, so it's great timing. As Justin said, we made it down to Orlando, spent a lot of quality time with Ken, people at Electromedia in the US, and it was beneficial for everyone.
Beautiful. Steve, let's just cut to it, man. If anybody's made it this far as a dealer, they want to know, what are we talking about for timelines? Do we have pricing on any of this new stuff yet?
As we mentioned on the last one, actually the one from right after Orlando, the first one that's going to be shipping out is the 5-channel. I've been told it's shipping out at the end of this month, so in about a week or so.
Okay, so we're not talking like anything far. This is within reasonable time.
We're talking in the next week/month. We're expecting him to land, again, depending on the transit times. It's always surprises still. So I would say end of July.
Are you taking pre-orders right now?
Yes, we are. Products are live on the web. Prices are, again, live on our website. Any dealer can just log in, or Audison dealers. If you're not an Audison dealer, you can speak to one of our reps, and we'll get you everything you need to.
Let's go ahead and pull up that info. If you're looking for information on Audison products, the first thing you want to check out is their global website, which is audison.eu. Correct. I just went on there myself. All the new information and specs on the Forza stuff is going to be on there for you guys. If you're a Canadian dealer and you want to get on the Audison train, get a hold of Automobility, and they will set you up. And on that note, Canadian dealers, especially Audison Canada dealers, there's a couple resources for them as well, aren't there, Steve?
Exactly. Yes. And the other models, 8-channel later this year, 12-channel later this year as well. No exact ETA. I know Ken mentioned there's still a bit of a chip situation out there, so it's selective. It's more of a selective breeding right now. So.
No worries. Okay, that's it. Oh, we should mention Audison Canada on Facebook and Instagram.
Yes.
Social, absolutely, and there's a group as well.
Correct. There's a private dealer group, which is Audison Canada Dealer Group, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Sorry, I thought and lots of great content. Ken Ward shows up, surprises us with very technical tips. nice technical tips. Our guys are gonna chip in more and more moving forward. So there's going to be more to it.
Yeah, just a great place to connect with other Audison dealers across the country. So if you
course.
ever need technical questions or you need some support, I think that's another great resource as well.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Philip, Mr. Steven, thank you so much. This was a fun one. Good luck with this new line. I think it's going to do really well for you guys.
Yeah, big expectations with Forza.
All right.
Thank you for having
You guys have a great day.
Thanks,
you,
man.
sir.
So there you have it. That's a wrap up on this Audison workshop, all about the new Forza line of amplifiers. That's DSP multi-channel integrated amplifier, small package, high resolution, Maestro, the works. Check it out, audison.eu. And of course, a great walkthrough and a couple key nugget tips from Ken Ward on the new software. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Reminding you to continue tuning in, because we are all about DSP in July here at CMA Networks. It's the DSP sessions, big brands every day. In fact, every brand. I'm proud enough to say that. We got them all. So if you want to learn about DSP, keep it locked on CMA Networks right through until Thursday, July 28th. And if you like this, or you might have missed another video from earlier this month, or any video we've done before, head over to our website, cmanetworks.com. Brand new interface for you guys to enjoy and peruse through all kinds of videos. Search by brand, by category, or your favorite trainer. Hit up my man, Ken Ward, who's done a lot of collaborations with us. That's it. Thanks for keeping it locked here on CMA Networks for this workshop presented by SiriusXM, of course. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.
I mean, yeah, let's talk about
Stop
today where I'm gonna go
Yo.
topics.
Roll it down.
I am.
You don't need a car to listen to SiriusXM. You can listen anywhere. You know that, right?
What? Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud Radio.
Kevin, you could use your phone.
What? What?
Alexa, play Kevin Hart's Laugh Out Loud Radio on Sirius XM.
What?
This is how I know you're getting old. I guess that was it.
What?